Hello everyone. Today we have with us Shri Paranjoy Guha Thakurta, and he is here teaching us media and society, a course going on in here related to business context. About him, he is an independent journalist, he is a political commentator, he is a director, he's into a lot of things. His career has been spanning for the last 36 years. He's worked in for a lot of media houses, and we are privileged to have him here. Hello sir.
Thank you for having me here. I'm also honored, I'm also privileged to be with you here at the MYRA School of Business. This is my first visit to Mysore, and I hope I'll come here again. It's a wonderful place.
Thank you sir. So how was your experience being here at MYRA School of Business?
It has been very, very interesting. I have been interacting with students who come from very, very different social and economic backgrounds. But what I find is that most of the students here are extremely sincere, extremely dedicated. They're willing to work hard. Some of them, I believe, are willing to overcome the circumstances of their birth, their background, their social and economic conditions under which they grew up, and wish to move ahead in their lives, in their professions, to pursue a career which would be not just a form of personal development for them so that their ego is satisfied, so that they earn lots of money, but I do believe that they also wish to contribute to society. I do believe they wish to contribute to people who are less privileged, and I do believe that they believe that that's the only way forward to build a better India.
Okay, that's nice. So, would you please tell our viewers about the subject, like your course, how the curriculum is and what's its importance related to managers? Why should we have an insight on the media communications?
I believe that it's the media, the mass media, is impacting all our lives in ways in which we could never have imagined even a few decades ago. It's not just newspapers or magazines or books or radio programs or television channels. The internet on a handset, on a mobile handset, all of these are changing the ways in which we communicate with each other and with one another. The internet is not just a medium of mass communication, it's also a medium of personalized communication. The internet can be used to strategize. An individual can use the internet to strategize. Organizations, different kinds of organizations, government, non-government, Indian, multinational, all of them can use the internet. And I do believe that it's very important to be an effective communicator. I think anybody and everybody who's successful in her or his walk of life has to be a good communicator. And I believe that there are different forms of communication, but mass communication is the most difficult, the most challenging form of communication, to communicate across cultures. And what I try and teach you and your fellow students is to understand how the media is affecting all aspects of our life, from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. And it not just influences the way we look, what we dress, how we dress, the way we speak, what we eat, but I think it has a profound influence on the way we think, our attitudes, our principles, our values, our ideas, our ideologies. All of these are impacted by the media. So I think it's very important for every one of us to try and understand the way the mass media works, understand its limitations, understand its strengths, and even if we do not work in a media organization, it's very important for all of us to understand how the media works, how media organizations work, what is there to learn from media organizations, and how the media is directly, indirectly, in a good way and not so good ways, are exerting an influence on every aspect of our lives.
Yeah. So like you have talked about media, so my next question would be like entertainment media. So does it lead or follow the society?
You know, all of us need entertainment. All of us need to communicate. Sometimes you wonder whether what is being put out as news is news or entertainment. The dividing line between news and entertainment often tends to get blurred. I think there is a need to differentiate between what is factual information, what is factually correct information, authentic information, information that is credible, information that is well researched, and also opinions. Opinions, analysis. To understand what's happening today, you need a perspective, you need a historical perspective, you need to contextualize what you are reading about something that's happened today. So that's factual information, that's what you might describe as news, that is what you might describe as news analysis, and there are opinions about news. Very often news is what someone has to say about something. At the same time, we also, I think, need to escape from our mundane, dull existence and get transported into a world of fantasy. A dark room with a big screen and high decibel sound, and we are willingly suspending our disbelief and we escape into a world which is unreal. But there are films and there are films. There are films that bring us back to earth. There are films that take us to outer space and back. There are films that entertain us. There are films with song and dance and sex and violence and tragedy and comedy. But sometimes a film can have all this and still not be a popular film, or still not emotionally have an influence on our, or we feel very emotional after that experience. At one level, the well-known British poet who spent a lot of his life in America, T.S. Eliot, Thomas Stearns Eliot, he said humankind cannot bear too much reality. So he said we all have to escape away from our dull, boring, mundane existence. But at the same time, I think if we live perpetually in the world of fantasy, in the world of imagination, in the world of fiction, and we get far removed from reality, that's surely not a good thing. So yes, we need fiction, we need fantasy, we need entertainment, but at the same time, we have to be aware of what is the reality on the ground, which we cannot run away from, which we cannot escape from.
So practically, it's a balance between of the reality and the fantasy.
Everything about life is a good balance. You know, the thing about a media is you have to balance entertainment and education. You have to balance aesthetics and commerce. You have to balance ethics and try to earn quick profits in a short period of time. In every profession, every area of human endeavor, we invariably have to strike balances between two extremes, and I'm sure that's true for the media as well.
Okay. Next question is, what's your take on imperialism in media?
Oh my God, I thought imperialism was an economic and a political phenomenon. Yes, but there are different forms of imperialism. There are very, very large media organizations that have monopolies or oligopolies, and they influence others. They more or less kind of determine what you read and what you hear and what you watch. I don't know whether you can call it forms of imperialism. Yes, in the world of the internet, there are a few companies which are dominating the world of the internet. In the world of the media, everywhere you go, you do find a few organizations, a few publications, a few radio stations, a few television companies tending to dominate. I come from the worst part of the whole of India. It's called Delhi, New Delhi, our national capital. New Delhi, or Delhi, is the only city in the world with 16 English daily newspapers. But that sounds impressive. But the top two newspapers would account for about 3/4 of the total circulation of all the English dailies. And so you wonder what the others are doing there to competing for a very narrow slice of the market. They're there because they are sitting on real estate. So it's the fourth estate is real estate. They're sitting there because the publication enhances the status of particular individuals. These publications come out because they are often owned and edited by individuals with political affiliations and or indirectly controlled by political parties. So the media is not like other products, nor is it like other services. It's a product as well as a service. It's in more ways than one very difficult to define. It's like, how do you define news? It's very difficult to define news. Across the world, we are seeing the media going through a period of a very difficult period. The great economic recession, the economic slowdown, the slowdown in economies, the recession all resulted in a curtailment of expenditure on advertising and marketing services, which in turn has had a direct impact on the fortunes of media organizations or traditional media organizations that have been dependent on advertising for the bulk of their revenues or income. This has happened at a period when we've seen the internet grow exponentially, and the internet has made some people spoiled. Every information has to be, every video has to be on YouTube, everything has to be free, even if the authenticity of that information, the credibility of that information can be doubted. So a combination of these factors has resulted in a disruption of the revenue models of many traditional media organizations. But at the end of the day, I think people still read, people still watch television, video. So at the end of the day, what matters is the quality of what you put out in the public domain. And I think at the end of the day, the public decides, and the people, they have to decide what is good, what is not so good, and what is mediocre.
Okay. So next would be, what does democracy refer with respect to mass communication, and how does it relate to consolidation of mass media?
You must actually 3 or 4 questions, try to roll them into one. Democracy, consolidation, mass media. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't call yourself a democracy if you didn't have freedom of expression. And freedom of expression means the media has to be free and independent. But there are, of course, restrictions. There have to be reasonable restrictions as the Constitution puts it out. When you talk about consolidation, because of the churn in the media, because of the disruption in the business models, you're seeing mergers, amalgamations, and that too is happening. You're also seeing large corporate entities and large corporate conglomerates now controlling much of the media. So they also determine what you watch and what you read and what you hear. So that also constricts not just the free flow of information, it also restricts or reduces the heterogeneity and the diversity of the opinions and the facts that are put out in the public domain. We have large numbers of publications, we have many television channels, we have many websites. India is the only democracy in the world where news and current affairs on radio is still a monopoly of the government as we talk. So despite the numbers, we often find that the diversity and the heterogeneity of the media does not reflect the heterogeneity and the diversity of the society that we live in. So that's because of monopolies, oligopolies, and the control that is exercised by corporates. At the end of the day, we all have our notion of information. Privately owned corporates want to maximize profits. Now that could be on occasion in conflict with the desire or the goal of disseminating information in the public domain as a public good. Information not just as entertainment, information not just that which is packaged and when sold earns the seller a handsome profit. Information is a public good, like the air we breathe, the water we drink, the land which grows our crop at one level. So the pricing of those products, the way in which information is disseminated and put in the public domain, what kind of information? Does that information empower ordinary people? Does it empower the poor? Does it empower the less privileged? Does that information lead to knowledge and wisdom? These are big questions, not easy to answer.
People now, piracy has really hit. So if you see the 90s, we had albums and because piracy was not that, it was all about cassettes. Now because the internet has come, the technology has swept in. So how do you think we can tackle this in the long run? Because it's really affecting.
Piracy and intellectual property theft is not new. It's been there for a long time. But the internet has made certain kinds of piracy or theft of intellectual property that much easier. Again, these are difficult issues. When it comes to intellectual property rights of pharmaceutical products which help benefit large numbers of people, which can save lives when you have epidemics or when you have major medicinal issues of major public health crises where you need medicines. So whether you should treat the intellectual property right of a patent holder of a drug or a life-saving drug, whether that should be on par with the intellectual property rights of a producer and a director of a film, or the person who's composed the music, or a person who's written a book. You know, it's become very easy to steal, to copy, to pirate, to plagiarize. But at the end of the day, I think just as it's become easier to copy and plagiarize, it's also become that much more easy to find out those who are stealing and those who are plagiarizing. You know, and depending on the on specific situations, one can take different positions on this. At one level, you say that should every work of art be put out free? Should every textbook or every publication that imparts knowledge, should it not be in the public domain? Should not every pharmaceutical product or the patent holder of a pharmaceutical product look on it in the way Alexander Fleming looked at it? He said, penicillin, it's not my invention, it's humankind, it should benefit everybody. At the same time, the question you have to ask, how do authors survive? How do musicians survive? How do artists survive if everything that they create is available to the whole world free? Then how do they live? How do they take care of their livelihood? How do they keep their home fires burning? How are their children educated? So these are not simple questions in black or white, either or. Because perceptions differ, as the old saying goes, you know, one man's meat is another man's poison, one man's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. Therefore, one person's intellectual property thief could be another person's reverse engineer. So I think it's depending on a situation, depending on specific issues, one has to take a position. And I don't think it can easily be summarized into a black or a white situation. You have to take a nuanced view, and there are many shades of grey between black and white.
Thank you, sir. So in general, mass communication is all about perception. It can be defined by different people according to the situation and the stand they take. So thank you, sir, for the interview, and we hope that you come again next year and teach us mass comm.
Thank you so much.